The chilling tale of the acid bath murderer, the horrifying journey of John George Hay, in the heart of Middle England. A chilling narrative unfolded that would shock the world, a tale of charm, deception, and the darkest corners of human nature. This is the story of John George Hay, notoriously known as the acid bath murderer. His life journey from petty fraud to ruthless killer illustrates the blurred line between civilization and savagery. Prepare yourself as we dive deep into the gruesome and harrowing details of his crimes, revealing the depths of his malevolence and the sheer horror of his actions. John George Hay was born into a rigidly religious family in 1909, in a small English town where discipline ruled the household. His upbringing was steeped in seclusion, devoid of the warmth and love that nurture a child's spirit. Instead, young John was surrounded by strict rules that stifled his free-spirited nature. This oppressive environment bred resentment and a mischievous streak in him, setting the stage for future wrongdoings. Even as a child, he exhibited behavior that bordered on duplicitous. Small crimes such as forging letters and petty theft became common occurrences, foreshadowing the depravity that was to come. What distinguished Hay from ordinary criminals was his charisma. He possessed a magnetic charm, which he wielded like a weapon, manipulating those around him to achieve his dubious ends. Throughout his youth, he honed his skills in deceit, engaging in scam after scam, becoming a con artist devoid of moral compunction. He flourished in a world of illusions, crafting elaborate stories that entrapped the unsuspecting. However, his initial crimes were mere appetizers to the gruesome main course that awaited, not merely theft but the cold-blooded taking of life itself. Hay's initial foray into the underbelly of the lawful world came in his early adult years when he was apprehended for a car scam. His first arrest led to a 15-month sentence at Leeds Prison. This experience was transformative, exposing him to the undercurrents of criminal thought and sharpened his appetite for more sophisticated forms of deceit. Behind bars, he mingled with seasoned convicts, discussing their methods and learning about the macabre intricacies of crime. It was during this time he encountered tales of body disposal techniques that would later inform his brutal methods. He read voraciously about the infamous case of a French criminal who used sulfuric acid to eliminate all traces of his victims, and it captivated Hay's imagination. Upon his release, a burning ambition drove Hay to elevate his social stature. He opened solicitor offices in London, Guildford, and Hastings and began orchestrating significant frauds involving illusory share offerings. His fallibility, however, soon caught up with him. He was caught when an atrocious spelling error on his headed notepaper revealed his fraudulent dealings. Although imprisoned multiple times for theft and fraud from 1934 to 1943, Hay's hunger for wealth only intensified. During his incarceration, he meticulously plotted the perfect crime, leveraging the knowledge he had acquired to craft his gruesome blueprint for future murders. As he gained employment in a tinsmith factory after his release, Hay seized the opportunity to gain access to sulfuric acid. This was the catalyst for his transition into a murderer. He conducted horrifying experiments on deceased field mice, carefully observing the effects of acid on organic matter. His ruthless experiments prepared him for manipulating human lives for his gain. The twisted sense of detachment he felt during these grotesque trials foreshadowed the horrors he would unleash on unsuspecting victims. His first victim, William Mwan, was a wealthy businessman and former employer who had once trusted Hay as a chauffeur. Drawing upon all his charm, Hay lured Mwan to his workshop under the pretense of discussing repairs to old pinball machines, a ruse to mask his true intentions. Once Mwan was in the confines of the dark and dingy basement, Hay struck with brutal force, bludgeoning him to death with a metal bar. In the wake of the murder, Hay disposed of the body in a hauntingly methodical way, dissolving it in a large wartime oil drum filled with sulfuric acid, convinced this would erase all evidence of his crime. But John George Hay was relentless. As he meticulously tore through life's tapestry, he next turned his sights upon the Swan family. He had forged bonds with their family under the guise of collecting rent for properties he managed, all while biding his time to execute his grisly plan. When the Swans, unsuspecting and trusting, visited his workshop, he killed both William and his wife, reusing the same horrifying method he had employed with Mwan. With each calculated move, he thought himself invincible, preserving the guise of a reputable businessman while feasting upon the lives of his victims. Hay's unquenchable thirst for wealth pinned him in a tangled web of deceit. Soon after, he encountered Archie and Rose Henderson, an affluent couple entangled in the fabric of London society, whom he again deceived into believing he had a profitable partnership offer for them. Enticed by visions of grandeur, the Hendersons were ensnared in Hay's charming yet deadly web, inviting them into his lair. He executed them both with a gunshot, instantly silencing their dreams in the same manner he had with previous victims. Each murder propelled Hay into darker territories. He began to relish the thrill of financial gain coupled with the power of life and death in his hands. His most tragic victim, however, was Olive Durand Deacon, a woman who fell under Hay's spell through both charm and feigned interest in financial endeavors. She was drawn to his charisma, unwittingly crossing into a nightmare that most could scarcely imagine. Using her ambitions against her, he coaxed Olive to his premises, where, like those before her, she was mercilessly murdered, her body subsequently dissolved in acid. Despite his heinous attempts to cover up his tracks, Hay's reckless lifestyle eventually drew the attention of law enforcement. His lavish spending fueled suspicions, leading investigators to delve deeper into his dealings. Although he believed he had cleverly disposed of all evidence, police executed a raid on his workshop, uncovering the chilling remnants of his victims' dentures, remnants of human fat, and other grotesque evidence that crystallized his downfall. It was at this moment his empire of lies came crashing down, leaving behind echoes of horror. The ensuing trial of John George Hay became a media sensation, ensnaring the public's imagination in an era devoid of modern distractions like television. The grotesque nature of his crimes captured the morbid fascination of a captivated audience. They were eager to glimpse into the mind of a man who could turn from charming con artist to remorseless killer. The proceedings revealed the extent of his depravity, as the prosecution laid bare every calculated move he made, leading to the gruesome murders and the chilling disposal of his victims' bodies. During the trial, Hay attempted to project an image of sanity while claiming he was merely misunderstood due to mental illness. He even went as far as to insinuate that he would drink the blood of his victims, portraying himself as a vampire of sorts, desperate for sympathy but finding little grace there. The defense could not dispute the overwhelming evidence. Instead, they argued that he acted in a state of insanity. In a farcical twist, the jury had to grapple with the grotesque nature of Hay's admissions, deliberating on whether to accept his plea or condemn him to the gallows. Ultimately, the jury found him unequivocally guilty, and on July 10, 1949, John George Hay was sentenced to death by hanging, the culmination of a chilling saga that had captivated and horrified a nation. As the date of his execution approached, Hay displayed little to no remorse, penning letters from Wandsworth Prison and basking in the notoriety his heinous acts garnered. The public remained equally fascinated and repulsed, rallying around a figure whose charm had shielded a darkness deep enough to devastate lives. On August 10, 1949, John George Hay met his grim end, the rope tightening around his neck, silencing once and for all the malevolent undertones of his charade. Tragically, while he found himself sentenced to death, the true cost of his actions weighed heavily upon the families forever altered, the innocent lives snuffed out like fragile candles in the dark. As we recount the chilling saga of John George Hay, we must not only reflect on the necropolis of human greed and depravity that his life represented, but remember the multitudes of hopes and dreams extinguished by his wicked acts. Each victim had a story, a family, and aspirations that he callously severed with every calculated decision. In order to honor their memory and the pain their loved ones endured, we must do more than merely recount his tale. We must engage in reflection and dialogue on the darker facets of humanity. For in our understanding lies our strength, learning to recognize the potential for darkness within us all, to ensure that it remains mere shadows in the light of our unyielding pursuit of empathy and moral truth. In the annals of true crime, John George Hay's story remains a haunting reminder of the all-too-thin veneer of civility that separates us from our primal instincts. His legacy is a chilling testament to the darkness that lurks in the human soul and the fragile boundaries that govern our actions. It compels us to confront the most chilling aspects of our existence, reminding us that some tales of darkness endure so that the voices of those lost serve as beacons, illuminating the pathway toward wisdom and understanding.